Hello, 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 and good morning. Happy Saturday, y'all. Welcome to the Success Code, where conscious leadership meets business and real talk, y'all. Real talk. Well, we was just going to do some real talk before we got on, but I had to tell my guests until afterwards. Let's wait until afterwards. So today, I have a guest here with me, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But before I do that, I just want to share my experience. So this is a new person in my space, and it was his way of being that allowed me to even think about having him on our show today. So today's show, we're going to be talking about the myths around connection and networking. Now, in my world, those are two different things, y'all. Two different things. And I actually wrote you're laughing, Jason, you're laughing, but seriously, and it's because of the experience I've had in the real estate business and in coaching and in the coaching environment, online and offline, right? Because of it, I actually wrote an ebook called The Disconnect of Connection. And if you guys are interested in reading that, I'll put the link in the description of this video. And so we're going to talk about the myths around connection and networking. We're going to do some distinctions as far as we see it. Now, I'm bringing you my opinion. I'm bringing you information. You get to make a decision as to how you want to move forward with it. If you want to drop it, doesn't matter. My intention with the show is always to disrupt the way you think, because I believe that the way you've been thinking is the way that somebody else taught you to think, and you get to figure out how to think for yourself, right? So without further ado, again, welcome to the Success Code. Welcome to my guest, Jason Wilson. And Jason, do me a favor and go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lorna. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited about this conversation today. All right. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm from Atlanta originally, but I've been living here in Colombia, South America for the past 23 years. And I always knew before I left Atlanta that I wanted a brand new experience. I wanted to learn a new language and have a child that I could raise that would be bilingual. That was what I wanted. And of course, I was really passionate about Latin women too. So I met my ex-wife, who was from Bogota in Atlanta, and we had a long distance relationship. And I decided to come down here in the end of 2003. I love the country, never look back, to be honest with you. The only time I go home to Atlanta is to visit my friends and family, and that's about it.
Wow.
But professional, yeah.
Before you go on, hold on a second. Well, finish. You go finish that, and then I'm going to ask you a question about Colombia, because I'm just curious. Go ahead.
Okay, so currently I'm a spiritual dream coach. I have a Bible study every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. I'm also a podcast producer, and I started out with all of my shows recorded, but now all of my shows now are live streamed. So I help to bring my clients' dreams to life. The majority of them are coaches and entrepreneurs as well. So that's my passion right now. I really enjoy that. But there's some other exciting things that are going to come about towards the middle of this year.
Nice. And before we wrap up, I want you to share about that, because I started sharing about that already. So you got to share it too.
Okay.
So before we jump in, tell me, because I hear these stories about Colombia. I have one experience in Colombia that actually said to me, I made up the story in my head, I'll never go back. So me and my ex-husband, I wanted to go to Panama. He decided to go. And then when we were there, we had this amazing, crazy experience, because he decided that instead of taking the boat like everybody else, he wanted to drive to, the islands. You have a bunch of islands off of the coast there, and you got to go via boat, and you can take the tour boat, right? You take the bus to the boat. But he didn't want to do that. So he rented a car and we went through some mountains in Colombia, y'all. It was one of the scariest things. But here's the thing that got me. As you're going through the mountains, there's a border patrol, right? Where you got to show your passport and all the things,
Yeah.
right? Guys, literally, this is Panama, this is the border patrol, and then this is Colombia. We had to literally in like 2 seconds, we had to show our passport twice and pay twice. I was I said, why didn't we just go on the tour bus? No, he wanted adventure. And they were
Right.
not nice people. So that was a side note. All right. So let's jump into the conversation.
Okay.
Let's talk about, first of all, what does success mean to you? I usually like to ask that first question to my guest because I think that success is relative, right? So everybody gets to determine what
Yeah.
success means. So what is success to you?
Success to me is having God in your life. I'm a Christian, and having access to God's promises in your life makes you successful. That's my
Mhm.
definition of it. Because it's not just about money, it's about having abundance in all areas, in your health, in your relationships, in your finances, in every area.
Mhm. Okay. That's a really solid foundational definition. If you, and that is, of course, you know, it doesn't matter what God you believe in, right? It's like you got to believe in something that
Yeah.
supports that, right? So and I say that because I want people to understand that uh we could go down on a whole another road with this one, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to do that today.
We got to do
No,
a part two. I mean,
we can do part two, absolutely, because the God factor, we've been raised a certain way to define who God is, right? And we've been raised a certain way to define who God is based on a culture. You get what I'm saying?
yes.
Not based on a relationship. So that's why my brain went that, to part two.
Okay.
So I love the fact that you said that success is access to God, to God's. What I heard is access to God's abundance, right? Access to
Yeah.
God's abundance because He created everything for us to experience. So I love that.
For
And
sure.
it's a great conversation to jump into when it comes to connection, right? Because if you think about success from your perspective as access to God's abundance, right?
Hmm.
Then there has to be some connection in order for you to access that, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. What do you want to say about that?
And, this story is interesting. So I'm going to start with the fact that my vision with coming here to Colombia, part of it was to teach English as a second language. That was always my best subject in school. So that's what
Mhm.
I did. As soon as I got off the plane here in Colombia, everybody wanted me to teach them English. And so I was teaching English at Nortel Networks. I had about 15 students there. And one of my students said, Jason, you need to do something to help people more in the area of relationships. All my students wanted to talk to me about their wife, boyfriend, husband, you know, every single relationship that they had outside of work. We were talking about these things in class. And so I said, well, yeah, that makes sense. So at the time the movie Hitch was out, and in that movie, a speed dating scene happened. And I said, you know what? That would be the perfect thing for single professionals here in Bogota. That's where I was living at the time, here in Colombia. And so I started a speed dating company in 2010. And my wife and I, we had that company until 2015. And within that 5 year period, more than 200 couples got married. And I think the formula for this, okay, number one, I prayed before any event that we had. So, God was in the midst of it. And, so the events went from 7 o'clock until 11 on a Wednesday night. Well, after the event was over, we witnessed several couples staying until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, I didn't have any problem staying that late to witness these people getting together and, forming relationships after a first date. I thought that was really, really powerful. So, after that, I wanted to do something more to expand to other countries. And as a result of that, Circle of Friends Club came into being, which, I'm the head of that. I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
We're a mental wellness organization.
Yeah. I love that you shared that story because I want to know if or, back then, did you find out what caused, because when I'm sure when it started out, it was, I'm sure they had an intention. You had an intention to connect the couples, right? But the
Right.
couples who came had an intention as well, right? To
Yeah.
find their significant other, right?
Right.
What do you think? Did you ask them, and what did they say about um, what caused that extended stay per se, outside of the timeline for the event itself? What caused that? What caused them to want to experience more of the other people that they had only just met, right? They've only just met them.
Right.
What's the thing that you think was the thread?
I think that it was a combination of several different things, but I think at the top of the list, it's finding someone that you share core values with. So I encourage people on their dates, don't just talk about work and what happened today at work. Talk about things that you're really, really passionate about. It could be hobbies, things that you enjoy outside of work, but also if you want to have kids, for instance, you have to agree on that. So that's a core value, having children within a marriage. If that's something that's important, put that on the table and you can have a short conversation about that. So as the night went on, they had a space where they could expand that conversation. And so I
Mhm.
think that's where the connection was made.
This is so, I mean, this is so good on so many levels, you have no idea. No, because this is what I teach in my program. Part of what I teach in my program, part of what we're going to unpack. And at the end, I'm going to tell you guys about an event in Dallas at the end of June. This is part of what I unpack: core values. That
Mm,
is such a huge key, Jason, that I think people don't even think about because the definition of core values is missing, right? When
yeah.
people say core values, when people say values, so there's a difference between values and core values in my world, right? The definition of values is things like, the one we've been taught, right? The things we've been taught are things like honesty, integrity, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Um, but there's a distinction, a higher distinction of values called core values, which is innate in the individual. It's how you move in the world. It's how you think of the world, right? So I noticed you said hobbies. You create your hobbies based on your core values,
Right.
right? So people don't think about that, and it's such a big deal because it affects so many areas of life. Business, you may wonder why your business isn't working. Check your core values. I
Mm,
can guarantee it. Check your core values. It's not just your values. There's a huge distinction. So I love that you said that. And the fact that the people connected in that way is I believe, that's why I asked you the question, because I believe that
mm.
that was what caused them to be able to even, we'd say in Jamaica, stomach caused them to stomach the length of time with one person after just meeting them for the beginning. So this is the piece I also think is missing in networking, right?
Uh-huh.
Because in networking, people think that when you are networking is connection, and this is So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the distinction between networking and connection, because
Yes.
maybe even when they came into your world, yes, they came in with an intention to find a significant other, but they probably came in saying, "Oh, we're gonna network, and if I connect, see the language,
Mm,
see why I say it's different. We're networking, and if we connect, then we're gonna go. We're gonna run
uh-huh.
with it, right?" So let's talk about that. What do you say about that?
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I've been to several networking events in my life, both in person and also online. And I think that when you go to a networking event, you may meet 50 to 100 different people at that event, but not necessarily have a connection with any of those people, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you walk away with their phone number, and well, back in the day, it was a business card, right? So you may have met these people, but you don't necessarily remember who you met at those
Mhm.
events. And the reason being is that there was nothing that you connected on outside of what you did for a living. So I think that your point is absolutely the truth, that you have to have some kind of core value that helps you to have a connection with that person.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
you don't know your core value, how are you going to connect? So
exactly.
this is the disruption that I want to cause today, Saturday. I shouldn't put a date on this, but this is the disruption I want to cause today, because it's so important. It will shift. eh, Man, this is such a passion of mine. I'll share with you this week. It was the first time in a long time that I went out on two networking events in 1 week. It pulled my energy, which was fine, right? Because
Hmm.
I went in, and I'll tell people, I go into networking events with intention, right? There's a
Mm.
reason I'm going. I don't just go to networking events, even when we do networking events online. I don't just go, right?
Right.
So these two that I went to this week, uh, I was very intentional about the conversations that I had, that I chose to have. Notice I'm saying choose. The conversations I
Hmm.
chose to have. In some instances, we were put in a space where we had to, talk to. I'm not going to say connect. We had to talk to, people. But as I left the first one and I came home and I was thinking about, how it went, I
Uh-huh.
replayed it in my mind, and I noticed who I spoke with, who I connected with, who I didn't interact with, right? By the way, the intention of the host was that we were supposed to talk to everybody, right? I didn't
Mm.
talk to everybody. I'm gonna be real. I did not talk to everybody, because when I connected with uh, certain people, the conversations got so deep
Mm.
and real that the time was too short,
Right.
right? So that, I believe, creates connection. And moving forward, there's something there. Whether we choose to expand on it or not is up to each individual, right? However, in both of those cases, one especially, there was such a deep connection. We could have sat there and talked for the entire hour we were there, because of how we were interacting, how I was asking her questions, how she was responding,
Mm.
how um she got into um empathy. I got into apathy. The different emotional touch points got
Yes.
came into play. So that's connection. So for me and for her, we know that was not just going to be a networking event that we're not going to talk to each other about anymore, forever. And that was intentional. So I go into rooms, and I think I've been doing this before I even knew anything about values and all the things.
Hmm.
Back in the day, when I just started out in real estate, I used to go to almost every networking event with thousands of people.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was still doing the same thing and not recognizing what I was doing. I walked up to specific people to have a conversation with them to see if there was any possibility of a connection,
Hmm.
right? Because you got to protect your energy. Right?
Right.
And if you really care about people and you're talking to somebody, you want to remember them, right?
Absolutely.
So, and even us, talk about us from last week. That's like, you didn't have to come on here today, right? So let's talk about why you came on today to add that to the conversation. Why did you come into and we've been having conversations all week, right? So
Right.
why did you choose to connect after last week from even how it started, right?
Yeah.
You were doing the background of Dan's podcast,
Exactly.
releasing
Well,
Dan's podcast.
the way we connected was you said that, okay, well, you do podcast production. Let's connect on that. So we had a conversation, and I found out that you read one of the stories on my website about a supernatural experience that I had with my mom. So we started talking about that, and the conversation expanded into other kinds of spiritual subjects. So that's something that's really, really core to me is my spirituality. And so here we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so here we are, right? Because it's
Yeah.
core to me as well. Now, I'm just showing an example of what's possible. And it doesn't, go. I didn't, yes. And by the way, you were not supposed to even be on the show today, right?
Right.
You actually jumped in on the show today because somebody else couldn't make it, right? So this is what I'm pointing to in this conversation about connection. Connection is it's like DNA because everything is
Mm.
energy, right? The energies have to align, right? The energies have to
Yes,
align. The core values must at least one, right? Because there's multiple core values. At least one must align, right?
that's
And
right.
yeah, when I read the story about your mom, I was really like, even when we were talking earlier this week, I said to you, well, you left that story with a cliffhanger. Well, I had no other, there was no other possibility than be like, Jason, can we talk?
Right.
My mind, right? Because I wanted to hear what happened with your mom because that was such a powerful, emotionally heart tugging experience.
Mm.
And, to find that even in 5 seconds of meeting somebody is the trick, right?
Yes.
That's the practice. What do you say about that? And can you speak to us from a place of even before you started podcasting, how you moved and connected back in your other experiences in life?
Wow. I think that the thing that connects me to people is me having great listening skills. I spend the majority of my time in a conversation just listening to what that person has to say. And people would tell me things about their lives that were really, really personal in a lot of cases. And I didn't always know what to do with that information, But, me becoming a life coach, I learned, how to give someone direction when it came to some of the things that they were dealing with, especially when it came to dreams that they would have. So now, as a result of me being a life coach, my concentration is as a spiritual life coach in helping people to interpret their dreams. Along with that, you have to have good listening skills, and that helps to build connection because that person feels that you're absolutely interested in what they have to say first of all, and then everybody wants to be or actually wants to have the feeling that they're being heard, and I think that's the biggest problem with mental health is that people they're not heard, and so they isolate themselves as a result of thinking, well, that person doesn't care, or if I was no longer here, I would no longer be a burden. But
Mm,
if you're in a space where you can share what's going on, that's extremely healing and brings peace to a person. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I love that because you brought back the memory to me of Maya Angelou's quote um, about how, people don't care what you say,
Hmm.
care about how you make them feel. And I
Right.
think I think most people are missing that because we live in such a selfish world nowadays, WIFM, what's in it for me, as opposed to focusing out and really tapping into through listening what the other person, you know, really needs from you. There's no
Hmm.
other way to say it. What does the other person need from you? And that is applicable not only in my world. That's not just applicable in personal relationships. It's applicable everywhere,
Right.
right? And even more so in business, because when people see and hear that you hear what they need, right? You can serve them, and then you get the reward. It's like inevitable. It's
Yes.
an automatic, right? Um, and then now Jim Rohn's in my head. helping other people, helping other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. But that only happens through listening and connecting with the need of the person. And it's not just listen to the need. It could be that they just want to talk and you just get to listen, right?
Right.
That's what happened with me with that lady I was telling you about in networking this past week. All I was doing
Hmm.
was listen. She just needed somebody to hear her,
Yeah.
right? And through the speed networking, everybody was talking to her about business. I didn't talk to her about business. I don't even know what she does. Honest. Well, what does she? Oh yeah, I know what she does because she did tell me. But that's not what we focused on. I focused on
Mm.
what was going on in her life, right? And that's how I
Yeah.
made that connection. So, um, I think that if nothing else from this conversation, people should walk away with is learn to listen and
Yes.
not listen to speak, but listen to hear. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. I mean, and I've been criticized on this, Lorna, for
Really?
not, yeah, for not talking enough at events or on interviews. Okay, I don't know about you, but when I watch a podcast, I'm
Mhm.
not there. I'm not listening to that podcast to listen to the host talk. I want to hear the guest talk. You know what I mean? I mean, especially if it's somebody important. Let's say that back in the day when Prince was on an interview, well, people really didn't get too much from Prince in interviews because he didn't do that many. Towards the end of his life, yes. But so when he was given the opportunity to do those interviews, you really wanted to tune in to what he had to say. So
Mm,
I didn't want to listen to the host talk the whole time. You know what I mean? That's one example. But that's my thing is that I want to hear the other person, and through that you learn so much from not just that person, but about
mhm.
life in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, because it's a human experience too, right? That's why you
Right.
learn about life is not just about the person. So that's again another level of listening, right? Because
Hmm.
you're not just listening again to hear what they're saying, but to hear what they're experiencing that they're not even saying. That's a whole nother training. All right, so let's skip gears. I wanted to jump into a few of the myths that I found about networking. Um, there's networking that's well. Do you have any myths that you want to share that you know of before I jump into the ones that I found?
Mm, I think one of the biggest things that turns people off about networking is that you go in with the thought that, well, I don't want to go to one of these things because everybody's going to have the same profession, but it may be that you have a bunch of lawyers in there or a lot of coaches in there, right? But not everybody has the same life experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an opportunity to not only just connect with somebody, but again, learn about that person's life,
Yeah.
which you may learn some things that you can assimilate to your own life to give you a better quality of life. So
Mm-hmm.
don't look at the negative, look at the positive that can come out of it.
Yeah, I love that you started with that one because that was actually the first one on my list.
Oh yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, because what I'm hearing you say is that ties into to this one is it's not about um well, the myth is it's all about who you know, right?
Right.
It's that's not the key to this whole thing. It's who knows you and
Mm,
who and how they can trust you. So that ties into what you're saying, right? Like if you're just surface level, people are not going to want to connect with you. You got
mm,
to connect on a deeper level so that they feel that they can trust you. Remember, I
yes.
said before, Maya Angelou said, it's how you make people feel. That's one of the keys to this networking thing, right? This
Absolutely.
networking interconnection thing. Um, all right, so I'm gonna say one. Um, that's a myth in networking. Be professional, don't get personal,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
completely opposite. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, be professional. Yes. Right. It may be a business networking event, but that doesn't
Mhm.
stop you from talking about personal situations in your life or personal situations in that other person's life. So yeah, that's a huge myth.
So let's not leave them hanging like that. Let's give them an example. Share an example, if you can, Jason, about what that. Let's role play a little bit about what that could look like, right? Because sometimes it's hard. One of the things one of the girls told me this week in the networking event was that she was going to go to dinner with a friend of a friend. So they invited her, and she was stressing. I mean, this chick's hair could have fallen out just from the stress, right? And she was stressing because she was like, well,
Mm,
I don't know what to talk about because I don't really talk a lot. Kind of like what we were saying, right? She's an observer, right? She's
right.
a listener, right? Number one, she didn't acknowledge the fact of who she was until we had the conversation. But number two is she was worried about what they were
Mm,
going to think about her, right? So let's talk, let's just role play a little bit about what that could look like in the conversation, a professional networking event that you can pull in personal information, which is our humanity, right? Right?
yes.
People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, how do you get somebody to trust you when you just met them?
Mm.
Let's role play
Okay.
a little
So
bit.
you can start. All right. You can start the conversation.
Okay, so hi, Jason. My name is Lorna Sherland. How are you doing today? What's going on?
I'm doing great, Lorna. So nice to meet you. How's it going?
I am fabulous. I have had a wonderful day, and I'm just so excited to be here to meet a few new people. One of the things I do in the mornings is say to myself, how many new people can I add to my life today? How about you?
Huh. I love that perspective. So what is it that you do with that mindset?
Well, here's the thing. I always believe that I'm here to serve people, right? So that's why I get up with the
Mm.
intention of how many people can I meet, new people can I meet today? Because then I get to serve more people.
Okay. All right. So in serving, what do you
Mhm.
do?
I love that you did that. I'm going to interrupt it right now because no, I want people to notice how long it took you to ask me what I do, right?
Right.
And then I'll get into, I'm a business strategist, I'm a transformational coach, I'm a real estate broker, all the things, right? And then they're gonna, so I just said it. I'm a real estate broker, a transformational coach, and a business strategist. And I'm known as the
Mm.
connection queen and the disruptor.
Wow. Okay. So I'm a coach too, which is really, really interesting. And so
Mhm,
you do real estate.
mhm.
That must be a tremendous help being a coach and then doing real estate, because people need to be counseled or directed in some kind of form of fashion in order to choose the right house or the right commercial property or whatever it is that you sell.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe that you connected those dots. That's amazing. You must be an amazing coach yourself. Because
I do my best.
I've been connecting buyers and sellers for over 23 years, and it's exactly what I do. I've been coaching for 23 years. But it's so funny that you say that, Jason, because I did not acknowledge myself as a coach until 6 years ago when I came into the online space.
Huh.
Okay. So, well, you just learned a bunch of stuff about me, right? What do you get? What do you get from our role play just now?
Okay, so you see how interesting that was. I mean, this
Mhm.
conversation could go on for like 30 minutes or at least an hour. And by that time, maybe the event is half over with. And you only talked to me, you didn't talk to anybody else. So
That's what
yeah,
I want people to hear. You don't have to talk to everybody. Be intentional, right?
right.
And here's the thing. I'm so connected to my intention that if I start talking to somebody and it's not aligned, I will find a diplomatic way, a really smooth diplomatic way to move away from the conversation. Because here's the thing, time is of essence, right?
Yeah.
Time is valuable. If I started to view time as my own value,
Mm,
you get what I'm saying? So
yes.
um, I just love that. And I hope this role play was really good for people because most people would have asked the question, what do you do from the first sentence?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And and that's where it goes into transaction versus connection, right?
Yes.
So that was good. Let's see, we have time for a couple more. All right. Um Oh, well, this one ties into what we just did, but I'll say it anyway. You have to prove your value before you can connect with successful people. What do you say about that?
Mm.
Say more because I can
Yes,
let's
because
say about
like you just said, time is of essence for these people,
mhm,
right? They don't have a lot of time to
mhm,
invest in talking to somebody because they have other things to do. So
mhm.
yes, you need to be able to convey what it is that you do, and also why that person would need your service in 30 seconds, a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, I would go as far as to say, um, expanding on that, it's service and value, right? I'll give you an example. Last week I was at a networking event, and not this past week, the week before, was at a networking event, and in that room were, oh my gosh, it had to be maybe $3 billion worth of people in the room, like if you added
wow.
up their worth.
Uh-huh.
And I could have gone down the road of $3 billion. I can't even count the zeros. I can't, right? And and so I was talking to one of the gentlemen, because we had a couple of small events before the real event. And one of the gentlemen I was talking to, he was sharing with me what he did, and we were just in a conversation. We were standing there talking for like 45 minutes. We didn't even realize what was happening.
Mm,
And um and the intention of the the event, that piece of the event, was for me to get to know a few people, because it was so many of us. It was like 350 people.
mm.
You're not going to be able to meet everybody,
No.
and the level of um income and the level of wisdom that was in the room, you just had to be present to that, right? So when
Mm,
I went in there, I said, okay, how can I be of value to them, right? Since I knew they couldn't all meet each other. So when I was
Uh-huh.
talking for that specific piece of that event, when I was talking to people, my brain was going, okay, who can I connect them with? That
Mm.
was the value because I'm a connector, right? I know my value. I can get you to the right person to make your business move, right?
Yes.
So I'm sharing this not to say, kudos to me. I'm just showing you how to think when you're in a networking environment. Because if you think of it that way, you're gonna once you add value to people, the
Hmm.
value doesn't necessarily come in the form of a dollar bill in your pocket immediately, right? It can
Right.
come from anywhere,
Yeah.
right? So when I was talking to this guy, I knew from a event before that that somebody else that he probably in the 350 people, he probably would never meet that person that I had been in the room, another room with. And I connected the two of them.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I literally
Interesting.
held one person's hand and I said, dude, you got to meet this guy. And I held
Uh-huh.
his hand. And matter of fact, it was actually a day later. Held his hand. And I said, come, you got to meet this one. And I put them together, introduced them, and off they went. 2 days ago, one of the one of the guys I introduced, right? His
Uh-huh.
brother says, "Oh, your brother says that you da 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 connection." He remembered that I'm the one who connected him to the guy,
Mm. Right.
right? So this is a whole nother level of networking because
Mm.
I'm bringing it here because I think it's valuable if people start thinking about networking as adding value to people through connection. It's going to change the game. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
be sure to check out my book when I put the link in because this is going to help you to make stronger connections, deeper relationships. That's ultimately gonna get you what you want, right? So,
Mm.
what, do you have something to say about that? What did you hear anything that you want to share that came from that story?
Yes, I was going to say that use your superpower, whatever that is, at that networking event. So your superpower is networking, but also connecting that person to who they want to be connected to,
Hmm.
because
Yep.
you're a super connector. So if you use that superpower at your networking events, I mean, it's going to bring you tremendous value and the other person as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
mine, what I would ask that person is, do you remember your dreams?
That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's so good. Say that
yeah.
one more
Because
time, Jason.
do you remember your dreams? Because 9 times out of 10, if you're suffering from something like depression, anxiety, or suicidal ideation, which is a lot of what these people that are super successful suffer from, they don't remember their dreams, and there's a good reason for that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and that's connection again, right?
right.
Again, what I want people to hear is that there are different levels of this, right? You got to be connected to yourself, your dreams, your mission, all the things come into play when you walk into a room, right? When you walk into a room to network, you got to be connected to your why,
Mm,
which is super important. All right,
yes.
here's one more. Let's see, how much time do we have? Okay. Stay in your lane. Don't ask for too much.
Mm.
What do you say about that one?
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're asking something that maybe that person is not even interested in. I don't think that the cost of it is so important, but does it have value? Again, I mean, is it something that will bring value to that person's life and their business? I think if you're looking at it from that standpoint, then the cost isn't really relevant.
Hmm.
Everybody has money. They spend money on the things that they want to spend it on.
Core value, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things that I've come to understand is that if you don't ask, you don't receive, number one.
Yeah.
However, you got to be asking in a way that is not okay. I tell stories, right? You probably figured that out already. So when I was in leadership training, one of the things that came up in my first training was this taker energy, they would call it,
Mm.
right? So I'm going to ask you what that means to you when I finish the story, right?
Okay.
Um, so when they asked me, they didn't ask me, they told me I had taker energy. I was like, what does that mean? I have no idea what that meant. Well, that meant that I was going into the conversation with only myself in mind, right?
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't going into the conversation in contribution,
Mm.
right? Of how can I add value, like you said, to the other person. So I think that this is the conversation, right? Like how you ask is, you got to be asking in a way that you're bringing contribution into the conversation, and you're not just asking in taker energy, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I got to tell you, the rooms I've been in with these billionaires and millionaires, the one thing they hate the most, and they can smell it in a second, is taker energy.
Mm.
Those people, they're always in contribution, right? So you got to be
Right.
really in. Again, I'm using the word 50 million times. We should count how many times I use the word intentional on this show. You got to be really you got to be super intentional about how you ask, so that it doesn't come across as, oh, what's WIFM again, what is in it for me,
Mm.
without looking to see how you can add value to them. Because yeah, they may be millionaires and billionaires, but they have needs too, right?
Right.
They have an ask too. So the quicker you can bring the value to them, is the quicker you're gonna get value from them, right?
Mm.
So that's just been my experience in that world, right? So asking, if you don't ask, so if you're going to go into the conversation with a closed mouths don't get fed. You gotta
Right.
ask, but you gotta ask in a way that adds value. Anything else
Mm.
you want to add to that?
No, you know what? I'm learning from you. So yeah, that's awesome right there. I'm gonna use that.
You crack me up, Jason. You crack me up. All right, so we got time for one more. Oh, this is so good because we've been talking about it for the whole time, actually.
Mm.
Um, online connections are enough. Online connections are enough. And that's so I want you to take on that one. Talk about that. Online connections are enough, because online connections for me didn't start till COVID. So what do you gotta say,
Right.
Miguel?
You got to have both, and
Mhm,
I'm we got a few minutes, so I'm just going to put this out there. I'm starting
mhm,
another dating company because I sold the one I had before. So I'm
mhm,
starting a new dating company in June called Spirit Link, and that's for it. It's a faith-based company um, for people that are single, of course, and they want to connect with people that are fitness oriented. And so, yes, we're going to do online events, but we're also going to do in person retreats and singles parties and things like that. I think there needs to be a combination of both, where you can
mhm.
connect with people online and also in person.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think that uh, COVID actually created, it did two things. Because how do I say this? Hang on. Let me land the plane in a way that it sounds and can be absorbed by the listener.
Mhm.
I think COVID was a gift.
It was.
Yeah,
It really
COVID was
was.
a
Yeah.
gift. And from two, it was a twofold gift, right? COVID was a gift in the sense that it caused us um to hone in on our ability to connect virtually,
Mm.
right? That requires something. right? Because
Yes.
even now, that's the reason why I believe that video coaches, on camera coaches, can be actually in business, right?
Yeah.
Before that, before that, there was no such thing that I knew of, other than going to Hollywood and learning theater, right?
Mm.
And if you know of anything else, let me know. But I think that it was a gift in that sense, in the sense that you now had to, like we're doing right now, transfer energy, using your words, using your body language, using all the things. You had to learn how to do that. I
Right.
didn't do that before. I was doing in-person connections with buyers and sellers.
Mm.
Now I sell real estate from Texas. I sell real estate in New York from Texas through a video. Right?
Wow.
So that, I believe, in that sense, it was a gift, because it forced us to hone in on some superpowers we didn't even know we had. Right?
Yeah.
So
Very
if
true.
you are listening to this and you are saying to yourself, "Oh, I hate video," it's time to get over yourself. Seriously, right? And then on the other hand, it also caused not a little, it caused some disconnection, because now, instead of people being authentic on
Mm.
camera, they were, or they still are, they're posing, for lack of a better word. They're posing on camera, so you're not getting the real sense of who they are, right? If you're
Mm.
not astute as to how to listen, neuro-linguistic programming and all the things. We had a guy last week, he was actually talking about eyebrows. How people,
Eyebrows?
dude, I'm telling you, the people that, oh goodness. And he's a sales trainer, but he trains on how people's eyebrows kind of tell you who they are and how they think and all the things. My point is
Yeah.
that you should have him on your show.
Huh. Interesting.
Be- yeah, because COVID did these things, right? In person, you can use body language as an indicator of what, people are saying something out of their mouth.
Hmm.
The body language is saying something else, you can catch it, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to look at a camera. You got to be in all places at all times on a camera. You get what I'm saying? So for
Yes.
me, I think it's twofold, where now you got to really master connection virtually and in person. I think, like you said before, all that to say, it it's twofold. You need both. You need both.
Mm.
You need both. And the key is to practice both, so that you get really good at reading, connecting, empathy, all the things that causes and creates, true, genuine, authentic connections, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I connect on that on so many levels, because you're talking to somebody whose biggest fear was public speaking. I mean,
No way.
I'm telling you the truth. I mean, all through school and college and whatnot. I mean, it was so terrifying for me to get up in front of a group of people.
Really?
But yes, but again, during the pandemic is when I overcame that fear, and it had to be me getting on camera, going to these networking events and talking to people, and just getting my reps in, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
And eventually I overcame that, and so now it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Um oh my gosh, I could go into stories, but I'm not. And congratulations on getting over it, because now look what it's caused in your life, right? You've already built and sold a business. You have a new circle of friends. You have a new business coming up. It opened up so many doors for you. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Your business
Thank
is
you.
connection, which is the reason why I had you on the show today. Thank you, Jason, for being here. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing your heart. Thank you for being in the conversation.
Sure.
Where can people find you online? Because you're in Colombia, unless they want to come to Colombia to one of your retreats. Where can they
Well,
find you in the meantime?
yes, we're planning a retreat for October the 12th through the 18th. And that's for couples that are interested in improving the quality of their relationship. So that's coming up. You can find all of this at circleoffriendsclub.com. That's my website. But if you want to connect with me, I tell everybody, LinkedIn is my second home address. You can find me on LinkedIn all times of the day. Just go to LinkedIn, send me a DM, let's connect. And that's the best way to find me.
Yeah. And let's connect on a deep level, people. When we use the word, when Jason and I use the word connect, we talk about deep connections. We're not talking about that, surface level stuff that
No,
makes making a difference. Thank you for
exactly.
sharing that. Make sure I have the links so I can put them in the comment section, the description section
Sure.
of this video. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I saw some people jumping on and off here today, and I want to invite people to watch the replay. This is a super important show that if you listen to it 3 times, it's going to change your business. It's going to change your relationships and how you relate and how you connect. So I'm inviting you into doing that. And I also want to share with you a couple of things. I am having a retreat, not a retreat, a 2-day event in June, June 27th and 28th. It's called Grit and Thrive Live. It's time to believe. It's a 2-day event for female entrepreneurs who are really driven, have been successful, but feel like something is missing. You're going to walk into that room on day 1, and trust me when I tell you, you'll walk out a different person on day 2. Guaranteed. So I want you guys to stay tuned for information. The wait list is just started. So you want to jump on that wait list as soon as possible. There's only 100 spots. And when they're gone, because that's the capacity of the building. So June 27th, June 28th, be there and change your life. All right, so we're going to wrap up our show for today. Jason, thank you again for being here, and I look forward to staying connected. Actually, I'm going to talk to you offline about some stuff. And listen, people, we will see you next week on the Success Code, where conscious leadership meets business and real talk. Have a great Saturday. Bye for now.
Take care.